There is a lot of high praise attached to some of the names in the 2023 rookie running back class. And given how big of an impact running backs can make in year one, we have a lot of big questions to answer. Is Bijan Robinson really a generational prospect? Is he worth a second-round pick in redraft? What about Jahmyr Gibbs? Is he really the next Alvin Kamara, like many of the draft analysts are saying? And then finally, who is the top sleeper in the 2023 class? So let's start with Bijan Robinson and this expectation that has been placed on his shoulders as a quote-unquote generational prospect. Yes, that term does get thrown around quite often, but I actually believe with Bijan, it is deserving. Over the last 2 weeks, I have been working on a rookie running back model that is based on data points that correlate most strongly with future fantasy football success. And no other running back since the 2017 class has graded out higher than Bijan at the 100th percentile. And while the model has multiple inputs, draft capital is the number one driver. And while Bijan is expected to go in the top 15 picks of the draft, even if he fell to the 52nd pick, he would still be the number one back in the model since 2017. While draft capital is very important, it doesn't take into account production as well as efficiency metrics, which the model is designed to do, so let's dive in. When it comes to production, the number one metric we want to use is adjusted total yards per team attempt. It's the second highest correlated factor to future fantasy points after draft capital. And the calculation is really simple. We just take rushing yards plus their receiving yards times 2, and we divide that by team total attempts. And for his career, Bijan had a 2.51, which is in the 80th percentile. In fact, backs that have gotten over the 2.40 threshold read like a who's list of fantasy football studs. The list of backs to accomplish that feat: Aaron Jones, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Dalvin Cook, and Leonard Fournette. 100% of those backs have gone on to produce a top 6 season. In fact, all of them except Fournette have had multiple top 6 seasons, and between them, they collectively represent 12 top 6 fantasy finishes. From an efficiency standpoint, when you look at Robinson's game, he offers a unique blend of agility, power, and speed. Robinson has a unique ability to layer moves at each level of the defense, and it leads to a lot of missed tackles. In fact, his missed tackles forced rate of 29% is in the 100th percentile since the 2017 class. Robinson also has great contact balance. He's got an ability to add extra yards to a play in a variety of ways. In fact, his 4.4 yards after contact is in the 70th percentile since 2017. While Robinson's abilities as a rusher already make him a top-notch prospect, when you look at what he can do in the receiving game, it sends him to another level. In fact, 30% of his targets went for 15 plus yards over the course of his career. That is the best that we have seen for a running back since 2017. So when you add it all up, Robinson really is a generational prospect. Even when you lower his draft capital, he scores very highly in our model. He weighs 215 pounds at 5'11". He has the size that NFL teams really love. And oh, by the way, he's probably getting the draft capital too. He could go as high as pick 9. So right now, Robinson is the consensus number one pick in rookie drafts, as he should be. It doesn't matter if it's one quarterback league, super flex. If someone is wanting to come up and get that pick and you have it, it should take multiple first-round picks in the future to acquire the number one pick. In fact, Robinson's profile is so robust, I would be willing to make him the first running back off the board in dynasty startup drafts. And finally, we have Robinson's value in redraft and in best ball leagues, where right now he's going off the board in the second round. I do think Robinson has the talent profile to carve out a large role no matter where he lands. Obviously, if he lands in the perfect landing spot where he has zero competition, we could be talking about a first round pick this summer. Now let's turn our attention to Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama, who according to Peter Schrager is also going to be a round 1 selection. Draft analysts have been singing high praises for Gibbs throughout the process. In fact, Daniel Jeremiah, Lance Zierlein, and Dane Brugler have all compared Gibbs to Alvin Kamara. And guess what? The supermodel 100% agrees. The top two comparisons in the model are, you guessed it, Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey. Let's dive into why. Number one, Gibbs was a target earning machine in college. He had a 25% targets per route run for his career. That is by far the best in the 2023 class. And out of all running backs with at least 250 career routes as far back as our data goes, that ranks number 5. Two other names that were also in that top 5, Alvin Kamara at 33% and Christian McCaffrey at 27%. So the second data point we're going to talk about is yards per route run, which also correlates to future fantasy success in the NFL. And once again, we have Gibbs ranking with the very top backs in college. Christian McCaffrey posted a 2.81 yards per route run for his career. Alvin Kamara was at 2.48 and Jahmyr Gibbs at 2.47. The other thing really nice about Gibbs, he didn't just demand targets, he was also very explosive in the passing game. 20% of his targets went for 10 plus yards. CMC was at 21%, and that was actually slightly better than Kamara, who was at 18% for his career in college. Heck, even the cons in the profile for Gibbs actually mirror a lot of the things that we heard about other receiving backs like CMC. Gibbs never accounted for a super heavy rushing workload over the course of his career. He accounted for 40% of his team's rushing attempts, and he also only weighed 199 pounds. Those factors together have some doubting his workload capacity. However, we need to look no further than CMC and Kamara when we talk about their rushing workload in college. CMC was at 46% for his team over his career, and Kamara was at 22%. And as far as the weight concerns go, again, CMC 205 pounds versus 199 for Gibbs. And another pass catching back we all love, Austin Eckler, was 198 pounds coming out of college. Ultimately, the supermodel loves Jahmyr Gibbs. He grades out at the 83rd percentile. We have seen 60% of the backs that have reached the 80th percentile go on to produce a top 6 fantasy finish. Gibbs should easily be the number 2 or number 3 pick off of the board in your rookie draft, and he's also someone that could provide us with value in best ball. He's currently going off at RB 18, and there is plenty of room, depending on landing spot, for him to squeak into the top 12 this season. Look, we're not breaking news. Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, they're going to be first-round picks in the NFL draft most likely. They are the top 2 prospects in the class. So I wanted to dig a little bit deeper and talk about someone that the supermodel kind of likes, but I really like. Zach Evans out of Ole Miss was a 5-star recruit in the 2020 class behind only Bijan Robinson. The model doesn't love Evans because he had a 43rd percentile adjusted total yards per team attempt. However, he was playing through injuries for much of his career, and some of the other underlying data points point to upside. As a sophomore at TCU, he only was able to play 6 games, but he broke out with a 2.47 adjusted total yards per team attempt. His career explosive rush rate, so those are carries of 10 plus yards or more, 21%, which comes in at the 81st percentile going back to the 2017 draft class. And finally for Evans, his average yards after contact was 4.21. If we isolate down to only Power 5 backs in this class, that is number 2 behind only Bijan Robinson. So ultimately, we don't have the full portfolio of work for Evans that we have for guys like Bijan, that we have for guys like Gibbs, but he did show those explosive traits that we really like, and the model is giving him credit for that. Evans ultimately lands in tier 4 for the supermodel, but guess what? That's not all bad. 37% of backs that have landed in that range have gone on to produce a top 24 finish at the next level. So while the type of profile we're dealing here with Evans doesn't hit as often as what we see for players like Bijan and for Gibbs, there's a lot of upside because of that explosive playmaking ability, and you could be hitting a home run in the late rounds of your draft.